So, everyone is using AI nowadays for medicine, but do we really know how to use it and how to maximize our marks when using Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini? In this video, I'll break down how I best use AI to maximize efficiency when revising for medical school exams and also to identify any mistakes and just make life a bit easier. So, let me introduce myself first. So my name is Shivank and I'm currently a medical student at Imperial, and I used AI throughout my medicine exams and I found it really beneficial. The first benefit of AI is the idea that it can condense a lot of information down into something that's much more readable and much more easier to process. An example on screen here is the RCOG Green Guidelines. Now for our exam, they were heavily emphasized by the years above and in general by the professors that this is really helpful for our exams. However, if you go on the website and for each individual section, there's a list of PDFs, and every single PDF is at least around 30 plus more pages. And there's around, let's say, 30 topics. That's 900 pages, which, to be honest, no one really has time to read. And so what I found to be a better use of my time is the idea that I put all of this. So with Claude, what's really helpful is that you can just have one link and it can access each individual PDF, which I think ChatGPT really isn't able to do. Maybe Gemini does, I'm not too sure, but I know Claude does, and I use my tokens for this because I found it particularly helpful. And I was able to generate a website which had essentially all these green guidelines condensed into very small topics. So, linking onto our first point, you can also tailor it to your university. So our university really likes the idea of asking like third step. So let's say there's 5 steps in the process. Instead of asking the first, the most obvious step, they like asking the second, third, fourth, so on and so forth. And so I tailored all of this and put this all information into Claude when creating the website. So not only did it give me the most high yield information into something that's much more presentable, it also showed what was the first, second, third, fourth, so on so step. And it really made it really easy, not only for me to understand, but I know in the exam if it did come up saying patient has already had X treatment and Y treatment, what is next? I already know, okay, with the guidelines that I saw by Summarize, I know what to do next. Secondly, AI is just really helpful in being able to manage your workload. So I think coming up to the exam, I was quite stressed because there's quite a lot of information. You have many different exams covering a variety of different content, and to be honest, most of the time it's not going to have the time to solve everything or to learn everything. And so I put all the information into Claude, told my concerns, told about the day of the exam, told about what I wanted to achieve, and I was really able to create a personalized guideline for me. Now what's crucial is 2 things in this. First of all, you need to tell it what specific guidelines are noted for your example, because every university may use slightly different ones. So for example, it could just be the national NICE guidelines that is used across the UK, or it could be something more specific such as RCOG guidelines specifically for obstetrics and gynecology in our exams. But either way, you really need to tailor that first. Secondly, you need to be very specific in how you want to tailor it, because Claude will just give its most efficient way of revising, but certain strategies may work better for you. For example, for me, I didn't really like the use of flashcards unless I really had to. For one exam, it recommended and was also said by the older years to use flashcards, so of course I had to. For the second exam, I preferred a different strategy and told this to Claude and was able to create me a personalized plan because of this. Now this may seem very obvious, but a lot of students just put all the information and tell Claude, okay, now just give me a revision plan. And whilst it may create an efficient revision plan, it's not personalized to you. And that's what's really good with AI nowadays, is that you can create a plan that's really specific for you rather than just what's specific or generalized across the country. So, what have we talked about so far? So firstly, the idea that Claude or AI in general is really good at condensing a lot of information into high yield information that's really important or vital for your exams. Secondly, the idea that you can tailor information that's very specific for your university, and also the idea that it can be very useful as a guide. Thirdly, and this is more of a disclaimer, don't rely solely on AI. I know a lot of people just use AI and be like, okay, it's told me I need to revise this, that's all I need to do. Be very careful, because a lot of times when doing past paper questions or in general, you'll see that AI can make mistakes here and there. So it's very important, if you do have good solid foundation knowledge, then use AI, but I would strongly recommend using other resources first before going to AI. I think starting off with AI first is a bit sketchy because it might give you information which is not needed, first of all, or give information in a very different way to how it's presented. So definitely use resources which are trusted by guidelines first, because this will help create a strong foundation, a strong base. and then secondly, to refine this further, to create more questions, to condense knowledge, you can then use AI. Also, this is information that's been very beneficial for me. So it may vary from person to person, but I think AI is something that is being used more nowadays. So definitely have a feel, have a try, and see what works for you. A lot of students in my year did use AI, but felt that it wasn't really that beneficial and just stuck to what they've been doing in the previous years. And honestly, if that works for them, then why change it? I just thought for myself, if AI can make my workload slightly easier, then I think that'll be really helpful. Moreover, and I've just touched upon this as well, the idea of using past papers. Firstly, the idea, it's really beneficial because if you've run out of past papers, let's say you only have 3 or 4 in total, you can put those into Claude or into AI and say, can you generate past papers similar to these, bearing in mind X, Y, Z. So bearing in mind that no past papers will repeat, or the idea some questions may repeat, so on and so forth, depending on your year. And I think that's really good because it'll then generate past paper questions not only similar to the ones that you've already asked, but also similar in terms of the wording, which is obviously ideal and what you're looking out for. Also, for me personally, I think this is really beneficial. Our exams are done online, so it's more interactive rather than having to handwrite. And so any PDFs that I would have to normally print, I would ask Claude saying, can you generate these into interactive websites that I can manually click and press enter? And these are all shown here, and if you are interested, then click the link in the description below and they will have all of this information. But I found this really beneficial because instead of having to print every single paper or the idea of having to handwrite in my notebook, I found it much easier to create interactive software which is also more replicated in the exam. Also, AI is really helpful when practicing OSCE stations. So as many of you may know, in the older years, OSCEs are a really scary part of exams. The idea that you have to practice talking to someone as if they're a real patient, or as if that you're talking to another doctor, explaining what's going on. And there are 2 ways in which you can use this. Firstly, and I personally didn't do this, but I know students who have, the idea that you can train your AI to become a patient. The idea that you can give it information. So for example, let's say you searched up mock OSCE stations and you give it to them, or the university has provided you with mock OSCE cases, you can give this all to AI and make it act as if it was a patient. The idea that you can train it and then have a normal conversation. So you can have audio and be like, good afternoon, my name is Shivang, I'm at F1 or F2. Today I've been asked by a doctor to do X, Y, Z. Please could I confirm a name and date of birth? And it can have a normal conversation with you. And I think that's really good. And if you like a video on this, then please let me know and I can get this organized as well. But I think that's quite good because then you can have a normal conversation. Even though it's AI, it'll really help if you're not able to have friends or families in the moment to help you with it. Secondly, it was really good for creating OSCE cases in general. So a lot of the times there's a finite number of cases that you can use, and these will ultimately be finished, but then you want more and more cases because you either started really early, or the idea that you know the exam is much harder than the cases that you have available. And so you can feed this information to AI again and ask it to create cases in the exact similar way to how you want in the exam. And I think that's really good. The idea that many students don't really know how to do OSCE stations, and if they create it themselves, so for example, going on PassMed, finding a condition and then creating a case based on that, it's much more different than the idea of AI creating it because it won't give you any hints, it won't give you any tricks if you train it to. So a lot of these things, it's very important that you do train it, and it may take some time, but once your AI is fully trained, keep that code or copy that code somewhere so that if you do add to the AI or if you do change it, you can just start a new prompt and do it again. I think that was one thing that was really helpful, is that my friend, he had prompts for all the different stations so that if anyone wanted it, he can send it over and then we can use that same prompt to create difficult cases. So again, just summarizing everything so far, AI is really helpful in condensing information so it's much more manageable. It's also important, the idea in OSCE stations, to help with practice and creating mock stations. It's also important in creating past papers or creating interactive software that's very useful for students. And finally, AI is just really good for ideas. The idea that many YouTube videos that I'm going to be creating, a lot of it were generated by AI, and the idea that I was able to just brain dump and say what I wanted to create, what I wanted to do, and it was really able to tailor it to this. It's also really helpful for any medical student interested in starting maybe a personal hobby, maybe starting their own YouTube channel, because again, Claude can really generate a software that will be very beneficial. And just have fun with AI. I've created certain websites throughout the year that may or may not have been really helpful for my exams, but I know I've had fun and it's made the learning process much more enjoyable than it would have otherwise just learning or memorizing from a book or online PDFs. But anyways, if there's anything else that you guys would like me to make videos on, please let me know. But without further ado, thank you for watching.